Hello, everyone. I'm Kirsten Wakefield, the Stakeholder Engagement Specialist for MACAN and one of MACAN's co-coordinators. MACAN, the Mid-Atlantic Coastal Acidification Network, is co-coordinated by the Mid-Atlantic Regional Council on the Ocean and MACAN. If you're not familiar with who we are, we're a partnership of researchers, agency representatives, NGOs, and industry members working together to coordinate regional acidification monitoring, outreach, and research to better prepare industry and coastal communities for changing ocean conditions. Today, Dr. Janet Reimer, MACAN co-coordinator and science program manager at MARCO, is really excited to share updates on our current priorities and projects, from our workforce development fellowship to how we can best contribute to marine carbon dioxide removal initiatives in the region, and our state-to-state OA workshop coming up in the fall. But before we get to the highlights, let's take a quick preview of our upcoming webinar series. On February 22nd, the OA Alliance, in partnership with MACAN and the Aquarium Conservation Partnership, we'll host a roundtable discussion on the new regionally focused Story Map Communications project, exploring our changing ocean impacts in response to ocean acidification in the U.S. And the registration information for that one will be coming out soon. Then on March 19th, in collaboration with Marco's next How Tuesday Portal Edition, Carly LaRoche, a MACAN fellow and doctoral student at UVA, will guide you on a tour of the Mid-Atlantic Ocean Data Portal's newly updated acidification monitoring site maps and provide an overview of acidification in the Mid-Atlantic. On April 24th, we're really pleased to host Dr. Raymond Najar from Penn State University, and he will be discussing his joint research program focused on the role of macrobiota in carbon cycling in tidal tributaries of the Chesapeake Bay. Our series will conclude with a mCDR focused webinar in May, as well as introductions to our two new fellows from the Workforce Development Fellowship Program and their project overviews in June. Some quick housekeeping. We'll hold all questions until after the presentation. All participants will be muted, so please ask your questions via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Janet and I will both be on hand to answer questions during the Q&A session. And just a reminder that this webinar is being recorded today and will be available on the MACAN website. So now I'll turn it over to Janet to share MACAN's priorities and projects for 2024. Janet, you're on mute.
Of course I am. Thanks, Kirsten. So today we're just going to give an overview of the projects that we're working on for this coming year. And as Kirsten said, please feel free to ask the questions, because as we are shaping our projects and scoping them and concluding them as the year goes on, we want to hear from you to understand how these projects can be better communicated to the scientific community and how they can be used for management decisions. So we're going to take a little trip back to our MACAN meeting back in September for a second. And some of you may have been there, and you may have been asked to explain acidification in 10 seconds or less and without jargon. You would be shocked at how many people stumbled on this and couldn't do it, myself included. So I wanted to give it another try again today, and it's something that we're trying to think about as we are creating our projects and conveying the results of our projects. So here goes. Too much carbon dioxide in the water can cause chemical conditions that make the water acidic or corrosive to animals and the minerals that make up body parts, shells, and coral reefs. When there's too much carbon dioxide, acid forms and becomes too much for plants and animals and shells, which can dissolve and die. So yes, I did have to write it down, but even writing it down was difficult because, again, we are very used to using jargon in a way of explaining things that doesn't always come across to our stakeholders. So that's another reason why we're trying to communicate our projects now, so we can get even more feedback as we continue throughout the year. So as Kirsten introduced, our spring webinar series is ongoing, and we are going to be adding dates. All of these are available. You can register for them on our website, and our webinars are part of our public outreach and education aspect of what MACAN does. We try to partner with other organizations as much as possible, because then not only are we collaborating and getting the message across to as many folks as we can, but it gives us many different perspectives. So exploring our changing ocean is going to be, it's not just going to be Mid-Atlantic focused. It's going to be this entire project that was organized by the OA Alliance and the Aquarium Conservation Partnership. So hopefully we'll be able to share that amongst the other CANs, and we'll have a great turnout for that project because all of the CANs participated. Then in March, we're going to be doing a How Tuesday, which features Marco's Ocean Data Portal. And they'll take you through data layers and that acidification data layers from the portal and how those can be used for management decisions. And then again, as when Ray joins us in April, that's going to be a little bit more focused on some of the science that is going on in the Mid-Atlantic region. Our next project that we're going to be working on over this coming year is the identifying hotspots for acidification in the Mid-Atlantic. This project is actually led by Marco, well, MACAN, I guess, MACAN Marco Maricus partnership, and led by Teresa Strummer. Teresa just received her PhD from Stony Brook University and has taken on this project kind of in a postdoctoral role. But she's going to be looking at different sites using our data layer from the portal of all of our different acidification parameters. She's going to be looking at species-specific sensitivity and thresholds to acidification, which is going to be through a literature review, and then a duration and frequency of exposure, which she'll be doing using the data that is available on the portal. She's going to be using different location-specific criteria for each assessment and analysis. And as you can see on the, I guess for you guys, is probably also on the right side of your screen, that the final product is going to be an interactive map on the Marco Ocean Data Portal, where we'll be able to see different information about each specific site, taking into consideration that the way that we define acidification in the estuaries and in the open ocean is going to be slightly different. Each site will have one of these pop-up windows that will kind of give the criteria of how that site was determined to be a hotspot or possibly not a hotspot for acidification. One of the biggest projects that we're excited about this year is our first ever workforce development fellowship. Last year, MACAN put out a competitive call, and we had 14 complete applications, and it was extremely competitive for these two positions. And we selected Nicole Ruiz. She's at Barnard College in New York. And she's going to be looking at satellite imagery in the coastal zone and how it relates to acidification, and or how acidification relates to the satellite imagery, which is a project that NOAA's National Environmental Satellite Data and Information Service, or NESDIS office, has been trying to work with the CANs on for a couple of years, but we've been always limited by capacity. So we're very excited to have Nicole with us for this year-long project. And hopefully by mid-year in June, we'll be scheduling this webinar to give project updates. Our other MACAN fellow is somebody, Edith Mari, who you may have heard us work with in the past. Edie was one of the driving forces behind the ArcGIS story maps. That's going to be our next webinar. And so for MACAN this year, she's going to be working on policy, network, and communications. And specifically, she's going to be spearheading a project with the Ocean Acidification Alliance and MACAN to organize a state-to-state workshop that we expect to be held sometime in September to look at how states can regionally prepare for acidification monitoring, mitigation, and policy and action plans. So stay tuned. We'll have more information on these projects as they progress. But not only will we be mentoring Edie and Nicole through this year, but we're also going to be putting out another competitive request for qualifications for MACAN's 2024-2025 fellowship. So we're trying to follow the academic years. So we'll release that RFQ in later this spring. Again, it will be a competitive call for up to 2 fellows. And just to kind of give you a heads up, we're going to be looking at personal statements, transcripts, and letters of recommendation for the application process. This year, we're going to have a particular theme, which includes the development of educational materials for the Mid-Atlantic based National Estuarine Research Reserves, and taking the acidification in the classroom curriculum that was developed in the last, I think, year to year and a half, and turn that into a curriculum that actually fits into public school education standards. And then specifically that's going to target Virginia right now, because that's the Chesapeake Bay NER is the one that's going to be leading this project for the Mid-Atlantic NERs. And then down the road, we want to branch out and develop those standards to fit other states' public school standards. And so we hope that this will be kind of a pilot project for not only for the region, but hopefully for the United States. So a little bit more about this state-to-state workshop with the Ocean Acidification Alliance. Again, we're targeting mid-September, and the idea is to bring all of the Mid-Atlantic states together. So for those of you that don't know, that's New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. And the goals of this workshop are going to be to address how are we measuring and communicating impact of acidification, designing synthesis and visualization products that support existing management policies. We want to help develop indicators for acidification, and timing wise, it'll be great because that's when we should be wrapping up the hotspots project. So hopefully we'll have a jump start to that. We also will be evaluating water quality impacts, not only on like how water quality affects acidification, but then the water quality that acidification creates. We'll be exploring the role of coastal wetlands and submerged vegetation in the mitigation process. So there's an aspect of nature-based solutions to that, which very much overlaps with our upcoming projects on coastal carbon and mCDR. And then the final objective of this workshop is to learn how acidification information can be used for policy and decision making at not only at the state level, but regionally. And the benefit of working with the OA Alliance is that they have case studies from all over the world that we'll be able to share at that state-to-state workshop. This brings us into our marine carbon dioxide removal and coastal carbon collaborative projects. So MACAN is going to kind of introduce the different marine carbon dioxide removal projects, mitigation efforts, and drivers of alkalinity through some of our later in the spring webinars. But we're also going to be introducing the mCDR projects that were funded within the region, bringing some more of those investigators to MACAN, to the MACAN webinars, so that we can all kind of have a better understanding of what's going on in the region as far as how are we dealing with acidification. And then also as part of how we'll be dealing with acidification, the Mid-Atlantic Regional Council on the Ocean, or MARCO, is actually forming a new work group. It's similar to SOCAN, but we'll be taking on kind of a broader look at coastal carbon in general. So this work group that will be starting up this year is going to tackle a blue carbon assessment, carbon sequestration estimates down the line, but as part of the blue carbon accounting as well. All carbon accounting in the coastal zone the Coastal Carbon Collaborative will eventually pick up the mCDR research and permitting guidelines is one of our topic. Also, mCDR data collection and end user needs, nature-based mitigation solution, and habitat restoration. Working group members are going to be from state, federal, and tribal agencies, as well as academic researchers. So there's a lot of overlap between the coastal carbon in general and acidification and the work that MACAN does, but due to MACAN's capacity and where our focus has been over the last few years, we're going to keep the overlap, but Marco and MACAN have kind of been thinking about it in terms of the Coastal Carbon Collaborative Work Group is going to cover sediments and like coastal wetlands, and then MACAN is going to be covering water chemistry and coastal zone and nearshore and open ocean habitat. So while we're essentially working together, we're working in parallel rather than trying to have too much overlap. So we'll have some more information about the Coastal Carbon Collaborative in the coming, I'd say, months. Another project that MACAN is taking on this year is we're going to be scoping a project called Acidification on the Half Shell, connecting underserved kids to the world around them. And this is a partnership with the Nature Conservancy Shellfish Climate Growers Coalition, the Chesapeake Bay NER, and MACAN. And the goal is going to be to introduce middle and high school age students to coastal acidification, impacts to aquaculture, and aquaculture career opportunities. So MACAN is going to be helping fund hands-on field trip experiences within southeastern Virginia to so that these kids can get to their local shellfish growers, and we're specifically targeting the Matthews County School District. So again, we hope that this project will end up being a bit of a pilot project that can be expanded not only to the rest of the Mid-Atlantic, but to other public schools in general. And when we say underserved kids, we're really talking about communities that are not necessarily on the coast and have access to coastal zones and those types of habitat in their daily personal lives, so that they rely on their schools to bring them and show them these field experiences. And it's interesting because I was actually talking to somebody the other day, completely out of the science realm, and she mentioned to me, oh, when I was growing up in New Jersey, there was a program that got us to the Jersey Shore once a year, and they were the best field trips that I ever remember in school. And it was really great to hear that, because those are the people that we are trying to target. So folks that don't necessarily live maybe with the Chesapeake Bay in their backyard, or the Hudson River estuary in their backyard, but that can really kind of benefit from these sadly once a year excursions. But if we can provide that once a year excursion and make that impact on school kids, then that's what we want to do. All right, so those are our kind of projects that we're starting this year. And then projects that we're wrapping up within this year that will have conclusions in this year include our MACAN educational videos. If you were at the MACAN meeting, then you may have been asked to, again, describe acidification in 10 seconds or less. But this is a screenshot of a post from Greenfin Studios, which is the production company that we have been working with. And they posted kind of a little bit of a preview on Facebook. One of the videos will have 4 to 5 minute videos. And one of the themes is acidification chemistry but in the classroom, but we have an actor doing it. So we're using a character actor to kind of portray acidification in in a stakeholder friendly way. So these are outreach videos. These are not videos meant to, for a room full of scientists. So we're really excited. If you go onto our MACAN Facebook page, you would definitely be able to find the link that we shared to Greenfin Studios and the clips that they've been posting on Facebook. The other project that is wrapping up right now, and many of you may be aware of it and may have already used the data portal to access acidification data, but this is a screenshot from the portal, and we're compiling coastal and ocean acidification monitoring efforts in the Mid-Atlantic. And right now, Carly LaRoche, who's a PhD student at University of Virginia, is wrapping up this project. And she's working right now on a GIS analysis, looking at data quality. So which of these sites are climate versus weather quality data collection, the temporal frequency of monitoring at the different sites, spatial distribution with respect to different benthic habitat, including deep sea corals, shellfish habitat, estuary. She's also looking at estuaries and their eutrophication scores, OA vulnerability scores, and then looking at which ones or what the distribution is in the coastal zone versus offshore, and also the distribution of benthic versus surface measurements. And the goal of this assessment is to try to look at monitoring gaps and make some recommendations as to where we could benefit from new monitoring sites or maintaining sites that have maybe their funding cycles are winding down. And then, so her discussion will include those data gaps and the suggested regional monitoring priorities. And we will also be using the NOAA's monitoring priorities report as that becomes available to help inform our regional recommendations. We are also wrapping up a website redesign. So if you go onto our website right now, you would notice that there's a lot of stuff that's out of date, especially because the state of the science is continually evolving. So some new things to look for and I think our website relaunch is coming in March. So there will be more information about that as we get closer to it. But some things that we're going to be adding on are project specific pages. So we're offering up to PIs in the region if you want to provide us with your like a basic project description and maybe links to relevant data or links to your personal labs website. We want to be able to share. We want to have the goal is to have a one-stop shop to understand what projects are going on currently in the region, ones that have wrapped up. So we're hoping to add in the 7 mCDR projects that got funded in our region, the coastal and ocean acidification hotspots. Will feature the fellowship projects. We are also updating the state of the science. We'll have a page that will link to the different states' OA action plans. So right now, New York, New Jersey, and Maryland have these action plans, and we hope to collaborate with Delaware and Virginia this year to help get their action plans going. We will have a searchable resources library. So right now on our website, we just have a list of PDFs, but the new library will be searchable for keywords and will include all the peer-reviewed papers that we currently have, new ones, as well as different outreach material. And then on our educational resources page, we will have the lesson plans, the new outreach videos will be available, as well as links to the OA Alliance Aquarium Conservation Program regional story map for the Mid-Atlantic. And in a couple of weeks, you'll hear more about those projects. But the great thing is that we're going to be working with several different aquariums in the Mid-Atlantic, including the National Aquarium in Baltimore and the Wildlife Conservation Society Aquarium in New York. And I do think there was one more, but I'm blanking on it right now. So Kirsten, if you remember what that is, go ahead and throw it in the chat or something. And then that kind of just brings us to the time where we want to open up the floor to anybody that has questions about our current projects, questions or suggestions as we go through the year. And I just wanted to bring attention to the fact that while our website is still the same old MACAN website, you can find it at midacan.org. We do have a Facebook page, and part of Edie's project this year is to build a larger Facebook following. And we also have an Instagram page, and that's also part of Edie's project this year to build a bigger following behind all of our social media. So that's the summary that I have. So if we have questions, comments, we're happy to take them now.
I don't see any questions in the question box, Janet. If anybody wants to drop any questions in the chat right now too, we have a couple of minutes. You want to have some further discussion on anything that we presented today.
Or you can also feel free to email me. I just dropped my email in the chat for those of you that don't know it. Perfectly happy to take any questions, any suggestions at any time. All right, well, I guess we can wrap it up. Thank you for joining us today. We're always open to collaborations. Our work plans are ever evolving, so do feel free to reach out to us if you are interested in